If Not Now, which is a new organization of Jews focused specifically on forcing the American Jewish community to stop their support for the occupation of Palestine.
So it should be obvious to you from that set of introductions that we have everything we need in this room. We have all the tools, all the experience we need to do the work that we're setting out to do here, right? And one of the things I loved as we went around the room is to think about the number of activities that we lifted up that were successful. In the end, many, if not most, I'd say almost all of the ones that we've lifted up, these were things that eventually we prevailed. Movements, grassroots movements of people prevailed to make what needed to happen. So that's a great way, as good a way as I can think of to get us started this weekend. So before we begin with the formal evening, I just want to walk you through a rough idea of what we have in mind. On your table, you'll find an agenda. You can pull it out, and I'll just give you a rough idea of what we're thinking about. So the first thing I want to say about this agenda is that it may not happen, because the whole point of this time together is that we need to have the conversation itself and the right people who are here in the room lead us into whatever the conversation is that we want to have together. So although we put some effort into thinking about how that might best happen, even the format that we've chosen may not work for us. And if it doesn't work, we'll abandon it and we'll do something different. So I want to say that two things that balance each other out. One, as facilitator, I'm open to mutiny, right? So if there's a grassroots movement to mutiny, we can handle that. I don't feel defensive about it. We'll just change and follow the energy of the group. Balanced with that is that I'm interested in the will of the group and not the will of one individual. So if one or two people are having a hard time, the answer will be to look carefully at what they're concerned about and see if we can incorporate that into what we're already doing. But I've seen too many conversations like this get hijacked by one or two people who take it and go a direction the rest of the group doesn't want to go. And I want to say that part of my role, as I understand it, as facilitator this weekend, is to assure that that doesn't happen and to try and help us all stay on the same page and working together in tandem for something that we all really believe in. Make sense? All right, so having said that, here's what I think might happen for the next 36 hours. First of all, tonight we thought it might be helpful to start with just a few moments of remembrance. This weekend is the 30th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster. And Marilyn has a 4-minute video that she's going to show as we start tonight. And then I thought we might just...
Are you set up for it?
No, I thought you were set up for it.
I thought you were.
Oh, no, I thought that was why you put the computer here. Can you come find it on this computer? It's on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Just find the link and pull it up for me right now while I'm talking, please. Okay? I'm sorry, Marilyn, I thought you were all set with it.
No, I thought you were.
Okay, so we'll do that, and then we're going to do an opening panel. And the purpose of this panel, I want to be clear, is just to help get our juices flowing. So we've invited 3 people who are known to almost all of us, actually, to just take 10 minutes each and give a quick overview of kind of their perspective about what's going on in the industry, what's going on in the nuclear industry right now. And Manna will speak, Kevin Kamps will speak, Roger Witherspoon will speak. We'll keep them, I'm going to keep you all to a really tight timeline, about 10 minutes each. And then we'll have a little bit of question back and forth among you and anyone else who would like to throw in some conversation. The purpose of this conversation tonight is not to arrive at any conclusions. It's just to lay the groundwork for the rest of the conversation we hope to have this weekend. Okay? We just thought it might be a helpful way to get us off the ground. Then after that tonight, we'll spend about an hour, and it will take probably a full hour, to get ourselves set up for the meetings tomorrow. How many of you have ever been through this process called open space technology? Yeah, a handful, about a third of you. So I'll describe it all later. Relax, don't worry about it. But what I want you to know about it is that basically the ideas for the things we will talk about tomorrow will actually grow out of whatever you all want to do or what expertise you want to share. And then we'll make a list of them and we'll figure out how to program them, schedule them tomorrow as workshop times for conversations. Okay? And then tonight I've asked the kitchen to make up just a simple cheese and cracker platter, and we'll bring that in and I'll go grab the flavored water. We're nothing fancy around here, but we'll just have a way that if people want to hang out and chat with each other, you can do that here tonight as late as you want, okay? Tomorrow morning, breakfast is served from 8 till 9 o'clock, anytime. You don't have to come at 8. And then we'll begin here promptly at 9 o'clock, okay, in this space. And we'll divide up for the first sessions and send you all off. So please come here, and then we'll figure out where you go for your opening session. And then I'll just say tomorrow late afternoon, if we are interested, there are a group of people from here in the Community of Living Traditions and the local area, particularly Rockland County, but some folks from Westchester I expect as well will be coming to do a public action in front of the Wendy's that's just 2 miles down the road here in support of the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, the tomato pickers in Florida. And that's around 5 o'clock tomorrow night. It's something we could easily do in 45 minutes or so. Just leave here at 5, go down for a fairly brief action, no arrest is planned, and then be back here in time for dinner. So if we want, we can do that, or some number of us can do that tomorrow. And then tomorrow evening, we've planned for Dana, who is one of the organizers who's been working with us for the last several months, to come and bring some colleagues of hers who are musicians, and to start us off on an evening of song, just to relax together and enjoy each other's company tomorrow night with kind of a concert. And I haven't planned anything for Sunday morning until we see how tomorrow goes. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah.
Now let's ask our tech crew how we're doing. Maybe.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's my bad. I should have asked you. I didn't ask. We can probably find it from my Gmail. It's Marilyn sent me.
I did. We can do it later tonight. The long shadow.
Yeah, if this doesn't work right away, we'll do it later. That's
Yeah. Try that.
How long is it?
4 minutes and 20.
That's it.
That should be it.
That's it. And let's make sure we got sound.
Yes, carefully do it. That's it.
Full screen, please.
Let's see.
You're wonderful.
In just a moment, we got it.
Where's that coming from?
Where's the sound that comes out of this box? Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I thought we had this all.
Turn the light back on for you? Yes.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this after. Okay? So instead, Matt, if you do me a favor and find Reggie and just ask him to come work on this in about, no, don't do it yet because Marilyn needs this, so we'll do it after. So we're gonna start with the panel instead this evening, all right? And Marilyn, I'm gonna ask you to use a microphone, Manna. No, but I don't think the sound is hooked up to the speakers, that's the problem.
Look, I mean, we could try playing it, but
No, I want to leave the speakers.
it's all the way up.
Yeah, I don't think we've got it because I'll figure it out. It's not hard, I just didn't do it. Okay, so,
I'm so sorry.
no, Marilyn, please don't apologize, it's my bad. Right, we got it. Okay, so we're gonna ask Manna to go first so that we can then turn the sound off and slide this out of the way. And then we'll hear from Roger and Kevin, and then we'll have some conversation. So Manna, I'm gonna ask you to use the microphone so we get it on tape. And
Okay.
Dan,
What I'm gonna do, since I'm so time challenged here, is really whip through what I think is gonna be a good foundation. We're in the middle of a transition that some of us have been working for a couple decades or more. We are starting to phase out of our more than 100-year dependence on fossil fuel and more than 50-year dependence on nuclear power to a distributed energy generation system. And New York and California are taking the lead in this, and while there's a lot of good things about it, there's some not so good things about it. I want to point those out as well. I'm going to skip the key points because I'm going to do them as I go, but I'm going to ask Matt to hold the microphone for a minute while I give you the basics. Some of you have seen this before, but the basics of energy in in the old system were large-scale generation, transmission of high voltage, then distribution for use. So generation, transmission, distribution, and use. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And you'll see the change that's about to take place that we're actually very actively in the middle of. The simplified grid was a generating station, transmission lines, heavy-duty transmission lines, a substation to step down the power, and then use by various different customers. And to think of electricity as a premium fuel. What would it be like, for example, if we had to figure out how to generate the electricity to make your dishwasher or your washing machine work? It's light, it's heat, and it does all kinds of useful work. Think of a coal-fired steam-powered washing machine. That wouldn't work very well. And it is capable of being distributed and metered. Key electric terms, kilovolts. Volts are the power. Think of it as the pressure that pushes water through a tube. It's the force that moves the electricity from one source to another. And watts are the capacity, the power to do work. And a kilowatt hour is how we are billed. How many hours of 1 kilowatt is used in the course of a month or a year. This is a diagram by Dr. Richard Perez that basically talks about how many terawatts of various forms of energy are available. And solar is by far the greatest. Wind, up in the little green circle, is important. Natural gas, we're not going to go there, but there is a certain amount still available. Petroleum, uranium, and geothermal, hydro, biomass, and ocean-generated power. There are the various major sources. Those little smaller circles, the orange circles on the left, are what was predicted to be needed worldwide. So you see there are many sources of energy. It's a question of capturing them. And we're moving from a centralized system to a decentralized or distributed system. So instead of facilities that run in the neighborhood of 200 to 4,000 megawatts, these will be 20 to 100 megawatts, locally generated and used, which will promote resilience. And this is a simplified version of the old one-way system from power plant to consumer. But a couple decades ago, we started to see solar panels going up on the roof. The meter, they were what's called behind the meter. That is, the source of generation was behind the meter, used in the building, and then if there was extra left over, it went through the meter and onto the grid. That's very different than the system that had preceded that. So when you hear the term behind the meter, you're talking about distributed energy that is used at the source first. This is a much more complicated schematic of a grid. I'm not going to take the time to go into it, but that's where we're moving, in this very complicated direction. So the transmission grid was high voltage, not directly useful to customers. It has to be stepped down to be used, and it connects to utility bulk power distribution stations first. The New York ISO in New York is the system operator. It's both a traffic cop, it directs the electrons, the electricity around the state and it auctions it off in what's called a day-ahead marginal pricing system. And I don't have time to go into that, but I'll be glad to talk to anyone who wants. There are certain critical constraints on the grid. Those are beginning to be addressed and hopefully will be alleviated. And there are other transmission grids. New York and Texas are the only ones that have statewide grids. Most of these are regional grids, and in our area, there's a New England grid to the north and PJM, Pennsylvania, Jersey, and Maryland to the south, and a whole lot of grids up around Canada and the Great Lakes that we can exchange power with. Now this shows some of those interactions, and generally the power goes to where the price is better. The distribution grid touches the customer. After it's stepped down, that's what our utilities in New York manage, is the distribution to the customer. These are various utility service areas in New York. And as of deregulation, these utilities stopped owning their sources of distribution. By and large, there are a few exceptions. And ESCOs, energy service companies, were created to ensure more competition. It hasn't worked out very well, and the problems, the very serious problems that we've created, are being addressed in this round of the reforming the energy vision process that the New York Public Service Commission has undertaken. Electricity drives everything. Peak use is critical, and I want to take a minute on this. That's a standard schematic of peak use. Obviously less very early in the morning, more during the day, and then less again at night. However, there are two different peaks, a winter peak and a summer peak. And shaving peak load is critical in managing peak demand moving forward. So this is the end of July, and that big purple blob at the base is cooling. And then air conditioning is important. That bright blue band is miscellaneous electricity, but there's very little electric heat, a little bit toward the end of the day in the upper right in purple. But what's important of note also is this band here, this sort of light aqua colored band. Anybody know what that is?
I can read
Colored television sets. Who knew?
Where's the internet?
Television sets are still there in January, but notice there are two peaks. An early morning peak, you wake up, you turn up your heat, you do a lot of electrical things, and then you leave. And then at night you come home and there's a similar peak, and a lot of this is electric heat, that dark red at the top, lighting, that purple, and again the color TVs and the miscellaneous, but cooling is almost non-existent. So if we're going to be managing peak load, that's an important concept to understand. The resources are, the agencies is the New York Public Service Commission, which is really critical and doing some very advanced things, and some not so advanced things. The New York Independent System Operator, I mentioned their role. New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, whose role is shrinking somewhat, but has been responsible for a lot of the implementation of renewables and energy efficiency in New York. The Power Authority, which is kind of a hybrid of a utility and an agency, and then overseen by the two agencies that are least friendly to humans in America, FERC and NERC, and then the NRC.
About 2 more minutes now.
Okay, and then reliability. I want to skip ahead and just touch on, this is our increasing new complicated system where we have a two-way system, generating energy locally and putting it back on the grid. Reforming the Energy Vision recently issued a decision on community choice aggregation. And given the time, I just want to say that what REV is doing is emphasizing and supporting the change to distributed renewable generation. We call it distributed energy resources, DER. This is a very good thing. However, they really are very scrupulously defending the role of utilities and giving utilities who have not done well by us for the last several decades a lot of responsibility in this reforming the energy vision. The worst thing from our perspective about REV is a series of hearings that are coming up on the clean energy standard. And if you have a chance to pick up a handout, the purpose is to increase renewable energy supply to achieve 50% generation by 2030, to support construction of new renewable generation in New York, to prevent the closure of, quote, emission-free nuclear facilities, and then to promote the progress of REV's market objectives. So there are a series of very important hearings coming up on the clean energy standard, and we all need to get out there and let them know to delete the preventing of the closure of so-called emission-free nuclear facilities. And I think I pretty much covered it in
11 minutes. Next thing.
So we're gonna hold on for questions, and we're gonna ask, let's see, Kevin, why don't you go next? And I think what we'll do is have each of you speak as Manna did from up front, and then we'll have all three of you come up and sit up here and we'll do question and answer after, okay?
So, my name is Kevin Kamps. I work at Beyond Nuclear, and Paul is my coworker from Beyond Nuclear. So, I'm going to be pointing at people in the crowd as I talk about different areas. So, thank you, Marilyn, for inviting me to speak. I'm supposed to talk about the nuclear realm in 10 minutes. So, just some broad categories. So, one of the questions that was put out there for me to address earlier today was the whole climate issue. How too many people are falling for this PR deception by the nuclear power industry that they are the solution to the climate crisis. And part of the framing on that issue that's really helped me a lot was a 2006 book by Institute for Energy and Environmental Research by Dr. Bryce Smith. But last I knew he was teaching out here at the university, but he really laid it out in 2006, and his arguments have been proven accurate way beyond the conservative statements he made 10 years ago. So he said, nuclear power is a non-starter. The title of his book is Insurmountable Risks. Nuclear power is a non-starter as a climate solution because it costs too much and it takes too long. And little did we know in 2006 how off the charts expensive this nuclear renaissance was going to be. I mean, you look at Finland, Olkiluoto, the new unit there, which was the flagship of the Western nuclear renaissance, a French reactor. It's now about a decade overdue. It's billions of dollars over budget. We're talking 150%. It's hard to keep up unless you're following the issue closely, how that cost escalation is going.
Can people mic up a little bit?
Here in the United States, we were looking at about 3 dozen proposed new reactors a decade ago under the Bush-Cheney Energy Policy Act of 2005. There are a handful. You've got the Vogtle 3 and 4 reactors in Georgia that are being financed by federal taxpayer loan guarantees to the tune of $8.3 billion. And construction work in progress, which is a ratepayer ripoff. In South Carolina, you've got Summer Units 2 and 3, which are all ratepayer flipped. You do have the TVA's Watts Bar Unit 2, a brand new reactor, almost ready to go, except it's 43 years old. And then you've got, lest we forget, you've got Fermi Unit 3 in Michigan, which is going to look to get a big chunk of that remaining pot of money in the nuclear loan guarantee realm, which is $12.5 billion. So it's been a total disaster on the nuclear missile side, which is very good news. You know, most of those proposals have gone away for now. We still have fights to be had. The good news is that we have now the industry desperately trying to keep old reactors alive. And so the rest of that framing I wanted to mention, besides it costs too much, the cost overruns out of control, the time it takes, it's not a solution to the climate crisis. So you've got nuclear power's own insurmountable risks, which is a lot of what I'm talking about. Bryce pointed out 10 years ago, you've got the potential for catastrophic accidents. And ones he focused on at the time were 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. And of course, 5 years after he wrote the book, Fukushima happened. You've also got the unsolved radioactive waste problem, as Judy Johns pointed out, perhaps unsolvable. You've also got the nuclear weapons proliferation problem, which is a fascinating one that IER has a focus on. And one of my favorite data points on that is Mohammed El-Baradei, director of the IAEA, recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize late in his tenure, pointing out that the reason more than 12, it's 13 Arab countries want nuclear power programs is as a hedge against Iran and Israel in terms of nuclear weapons. Because whatever country has uranium enrichment, whatever country has plutonium processing, can use those technologies to get to the bomb. And North Korea is about the latest example of that. So the companion book to Insurmountable Risks in 2006 was Arjun Makhrijani's Carbon-Free and Nuclear-Free: A Roadmap for U.S. Energy Policy in 2007, where he argued very compellingly one of the first technical studies in this regard. And now you've got the likes of Dr. Mark Jacobson making this point on a state-by-state basis. You've got countries like Germany, the 4th largest economy in the world, doing this in the real world. But Arjun pointed out in 2007, the largest economy in the world, the United States economy, could completely phase out not only nuclear power, but also fossil fuels, and could do so by the year 2040, take a transition, but could do so for the same percentage of our gross domestic product that we spend on dirty, dangerous, and expensive fossil fuels and nuclear power. No further technological breakthroughs required. We can do it with the technology we have. So these ideas have been out there for a decade, and in Germany, it's being implemented. Complete nuclear phase out by 2022. That is a direct response to Fukushima. You know, the Green Party got it from the mid-70s from their founding. Nuclear power was a bad idea. It took Chernobyl to convince the Social Democrats in Germany that nuclear power was a bad idea. But those two parties in coalition, by the year 2000, said we're going to phase out nuclear power by 2020. The conservatives swept the power, tried to reverse that, gave license extensions to old reactors. Then Fukushima happened. And shortly after Fukushima happened, the Conservative Party lost regional elections in places like Stuttgart and Bremen, where they had ruled since just after World War II. And Merkel was looking at the end of her career. She didn't do a complete 180. She had spent the previous 2-3 years undoing nuclear phase out, and then she quickly put it back in place. And so 2022, nuclear power is over in Germany. They just had some revelations of safety shortcuts at the still operating reactors, so maybe it'll be faster. Let's hope so. By mid-century, Germany's plan is a 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So they're taking the climate issue very seriously in Germany. So how about the United States? I mean, I want to focus on Entergy because we're so close to India. A lot of you are very engaged in that fight. I'm from Michigan originally. Palisades Entergy plant is another pressurized water reactor. An interesting relationship that Indian Point Unit 3 has with Palisades is these are some of the worst embrittled reactor pressure vessels in the United States. The reactor pressure vessels are neutron embrittled. They're the worst in the country. And NRC, in its collusion with industry, is undoing the safety regulations on this very critical safety issue. So one of our responses at Palisades, because the license extension was granted in 2007, despite our best efforts, now that we tried again to get the embrittlement issue addressed, is potassium iodide. And Paul is taking the lead on that, not only at Palisades, but also at the Fermi Unit 2 reactor in Michigan, which is the biggest Fukushima reactor in the country, in the world. So at the very least, to protect people's thyroids against these reactor disasters that are getting ever more risky. The good news, a lot of old reactors have shut down in recent years, record-breaking number of shutdowns in the US, but now Fitzpatrick has announced the closure date of January 2017 program, June of 2019. I think folks up that way may have some plans up their sleeves to make that happen sooner if possible. I want to shift real quickly. So the reactor risks, the breakdown phase risks that get worse with every passing day at these old reactors we live in the shadows of.
Got about 2 more minutes.
Okay, well, on radioactive waste, we have some very serious challenges that we're facing. Just yesterday, waste control specialists in Texas applied to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for a construction and operating license for a centralized interim storage fight. This will be the umpteenth round of this fight. This is mobile Chernobyl. This is floating Fukushimas. This is dirty bombs on wheels. Here at Indian Point, because they lack direct rail access, if they want to move the high-level radioactive waste, barge shipments on the Hudson River are a distinct possibility. At Palisades, lacking direct rail access, barge shipments on Lake Michigan. If one of these goes down and releases its contents, that is a disaster. But water getting in could spark a chain reaction in the waste on the bottom of these surface waters. So it makes no sense. We stopped them before, we'll have to stop them again. This is going to be tough. The DOE is circulating throughout the country, holding consent-based siting hearings. Won't you just say yes to a parking lot dump? So we have our work cut out for us on Capitol Hill, the Energy and Water Appropriations Bill, Senator Alexander from Tennessee, Senator Feinstein from California. On the Senate side, they're all about parking lot dumps. On the House side, the Republicans still not got it. Of course, the elections this year will be important in all kinds of ways, but on these issues, they're very important as well. And we could see a push for shipments in the not too distant future. We could see a resurrection of the Yucca dump. We could certainly see these parking lot dumps being pushed in a very big way. The last major category I'll talk about is just the money, the ratepayer robbery, the taxpayer ripoffs. So the nuclear renaissance of new reactors is largely dead on arrival, but a lot of money still at stake there. On the old reactors now, that's the forest for the trees. Now the industry is desperately trying to keep old reactors afloat through major money grabs. Here in New York, also in Ohio, also in Illinois. We just had a horrible ruling by the DC Public Service Commission, which is not unrelated to the attempt by Exxon Nuclear to keep all reactors in Illinois going through yet another revenue stream. So if we can block these money grabs, then we can continue this, record-breaking rate of shutting down reactors in the U.S. And the last thing I'll close on is we had a conversation at dinner about the day that the Indian Point 3 operating license expired, and folks holding a nonviolent civil disobedience at Indian Point to mark that occasion.
December 12th.
December 12th. And another great day was when Vermont Yankees 4-year license expired. 400 plus people got arrested back in 2012. And then just a couple years later, that reactor was shut down. So, I'll just close with remembering that the heartbeat of the German anti-nuclear power movement, which was inspired by the Clamshell Alliance in New Hampshire. There was a lot of interchange between the German movement and the Clamshell Alliance. The heartbeat of the German anti-nuclear movement all these decades was trying to block those mobile Chernobyl shipments to Orlia. Michael Marriott was there from NEARS in 1997 when 20,000 protesters faced 30,000 police for 6 shipments to move in at a cost of $100 million. I was there in 2001. It was a smaller turnout, 10,000 protesters 15,000 police, people blocking the roads by the thousands, people locking their necks to the train tracks by the hundreds. So, you know, that movement, that nonviolent civil disobedience movement is a key part of this. And so we have all kinds of work to do this weekend to figure out what our next steps are. Thanks.
Thank you.
Roger?
Prefer to stand? Mic stand?
It's too tall.
I can sure sit down.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, I was asked to talk a bit about the grid and the environment in which these plants operate. Manna gave a nice foundation for how that works. There are a couple of examples that I would like to hone in on. So a speech 2 days ago, the head of the PSC was talking about distributed generation and how the grid is evolving. What was most notable in her talk was that she never mentioned the phrase baseload. And if you're looking at the environment in which these nuclear plants operate, and formerly the really large coal plants operate, then let's start with how the officials that regulate these plants have changed their look at their view of what is needed to run a regional electrical system. The baseload plants, which you had in the monopoly systems, was a very large plant that created out 1,000 or more megawatts 24/7, and everything else was added or subtracted as needed depending on your peak load in any given day. In 2005, North American Reliability Council said that's not what we need anymore. Baseload should simply be the minimum amount of electricity needed to safely operate a regional system, period, no matter where you get it from. At that point, solar power was in its infancy. Conservation was still an idea, and the grids were still relying on these massive plants, which dominated the competitive marketplace. In 2006, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that oversees all of this, adopted the same language. In 2012, the New York ISO did also. And that was the beginning of the end of the need for the larger plants, because that's also the same year that you first saw negative bids in the auctions. And you have day-ahead auctions for electricity. You have 15-minute, 1 hour, and 5-minute bids, 5-minute auctions. And what happens with a negative bid with a nuclear power plant is they are no longer the low bid or among the lower bids, and in fact are priced out of the auction market. And the only way that they can get their electricity out there is if they bid negative, which means they pay the company that actually won not to produce so that their electricity can go. And that is why GMA and Mount Point and Fitzpatrick are losing money, because they are paying as more and more electricity comes onto the grid, from solar, which reduces the demand, and wind farms, primarily in the Great Lakes, which are basically eating their lunch, and more efficient plants, primarily gas, from elsewhere. But the impact that the grid, the way the grid works, is as it improves with transmission and more lines are built, you're able to get electricity from different places and more competition. And as that happens, these large plants just aren't needed anymore. I noticed that the debate about whether or not to continue Indian Point generally devolves into somebody saying, well, how are you going to replace 2,000 megawatts? If you have any understanding of the grid, you don't need to replace anything. The free market has already replaced everything. There is more than 5,000 megawatts of electricity available to this region. You don't have to get anything from Indian Point if you choose not to. Currently, they provide 560 megawatts to Con Ed. They provide no electricity to the New York Power Authority. They sell the rest of their electricity through ISO in New England, through the Putnam Valley interchange, and to the Mid-Hudson region, where they signed up to the capacity auctions for Orange County North. That 560 megawatts is roughly 4.3% of the electricity actually used in New York City and Westchester County in the summertime, where the peak load is roughly 13,000 megawatts during the day. They have never, ever been capable of providing 25% of the electricity used in this region. They never will. They don't produce that much. At 13,000 megawatts, 25% is about 3,200 megawatts, which is 60% more than they can produce. They get away with it because, since you all are activists and are trying to sway public opinion, you get away with it because the media has changed over the last 10 years. And basically, we don't have deep reporters anymore. And we have general assignment reporters who are pretty much confined to rewriting press releases or Googling and plagiarizing each other. And so if you wish to sway public opinion, then you want to figure out how to get around that. I don't know which questions.
So come on up, the three of you, please. And have a seat right up here. And I get to be Phil Donahue. So I'm just going to actually throw it open to questions because I think there are plenty of questions in this room. I will beg of you, please do not use the opportunity now to make speeches, because you'll have your opportunity tomorrow to have people come and talk about the things you want to talk about. Tonight, let's focus on questions that are actually aimed at one or two or all three of our speakers this evening to kind of just draw out all of us into thinking we haven't done before. You want to go first, guys?
Okay. Thank you, each and every one of you. I have questions for each of you, but I'll start with Roger. Could you expound a little bit more upon how to sway public opinion and go a little further with that?
Okay, part of it is to actually confront reporters and demand that they justify the crap that they use. The second part is to actually have meetings with editors and explain, here's the figures I have, here's what you're saying, how do you justify that? And if you can't, then you have to change. For example, in the dispute over closed cycle cooling, the Associated Press referred to the system as the proposed system as cooling towers. I called the AP reporter and said, and I'm talking about cooling towers. And he said, well, that's just what I use. Fine. I called his boss and asked to tell the editors that he was flat out wrong, that the subject of cooling towers never came up, that they were using a radiator type system that was used for Miami and Fitzpatrick. It's roughly 4 stories and 7 cells, like a big air conditioning unit. And the notion that you need a 500-foot cooling tower is just flat out wrong. And why is he putting that out? And so they asked the reporter, would you justify where this came from, which he could not do, and therefore he was ordered to change and not use that phrase again. So if you wish to change something, to start with, you need to address what is the common wisdom. And in many things dealing with nuclear power, the common wisdom is that the earth is still flat. And you have to go to management and say, this is what you're putting out, and this is just flat out wrong. Here's our justification, where's yours?
Thank you.
Manna and Kevin, you don't have to, but you're welcome to respond to the question as well. Right.
How to sway public opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know, one thought that came to my mind is we often just show up and everything, right? And Dave Freeman is a senior advisor to the Friends of the Earth. He used to run the TVA for Jimmy Carter, the Tennessee Valley Authority.
He also ran Nike.
Oh, did he? Okay. I just heard him at an activist gathering one time say, if we are activists, the least we can do is be active, which was helpful. But we are. I mean, we show up at everything, and sometimes we're lucky, and despite our broken, media realm these days, with some great exceptions sitting next to me here, we still get covered that there is another side, despite the PR machine that the industry puts out there and these colluding agencies like the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So we just have to keep showing up. We have to be active. Throwing a nonviolent civil disobedience at Indian Point on the expiration day was great, and it inspired me at dinner that we need to do that on Earth Day 2017 in Ohio at Davis Bessie, because that's when their initial 4-year license expired. So we just keep showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
There are also organizations, there's an association of science writers, there's a Society of Environmental Journalists. You might try arranging to speak at their regional meetings where you can talk directly to a number of reporters and present your data and show where what they've been saying may be incorrect, and give them something to think about in a forum that they find non-threatening.
Judy, back to you.
Oh, you don't have to bring them up.
Yes, I do. Speaking of like, we're picking it up on film too, so.
This is a very short question, Manna. You said that NYSERDA's role is shrinking. Why is that?
Well, it's because New York now has,
Can you repeat the question? Just
why is NYSERDA's role shrinking? New York has an energy czar and a team of agencies that are working together, supposedly together, to implement the principles of reforming the energy vision. From my perspective, these folks are plagued with what I call magical market thinking, that they are trying very hard to make the marketplace still work. They are, most of them, with the exception of NYSERDA, are all regulators, and they don't really like regulating. They are used to, as NRC and FERC are, supporting the industries. But they have a lot of very valuable principles embodied in these proceedings, the rare proceedings. And I would ask if we could indulge Jessica to give a little bit better answer to that question, just very quickly.
Okay, I'll try. Why is NYSERDA's role shrinking?
Why don't you go first?
Maybe if I do this, so that you can hear me. Okay. So I think, as Manna said, there's a decreasing reliance on the idea that the market will bring renewable energy, and that this distributed energy system will be brought by a competitive market. And so the amount of money that the state is willing to put, and it's ratepayer money, it's our money, but the amount of money that the state is willing to collect from us on our bills and put toward state-run programs and subsidies for renewable energy, they really, really want to shrink that. And their hope is that money will come from Wall Street and from the market to make up the difference. I think there's a little bit of a shift now, though, with the clean energy standard, because they're going to require utilities to buy ever-increasing percentages of renewable energy and nuclear energy, and they're going to make ratepayers pay for that.
Yeah, in the meantime, I would say that the market forces are working in ways that we have to be very careful about, and that is there are solar developers that are just fanning out throughout the countryside, offering what some of us consider to be predatory leases. We want to see solar infrastructure and all the other, particularly offshore wind, but all the other forms of renewable energy brought in place as quickly as possible, but not at the expense of essentially paving over prime farmland or ripping people off. So in the past few months, we've held several conferences on zoning for solar and the predatory solar leases. Hundreds of people are coming out to these conferences. This is happening now. This is no longer 5, 10, 15 years in the future. But it is far too soon to reduce the subsidies or to cut the system benefit charges and the renewable portfolio standard and all the good things that have brought us as far as we've come. But we have to, this is the PSC we have to work with. We have comment periods, and to some extent they do listen, and the more of us come out, the more they listen.
A couple of things here. The federal energy standard does not include nuclear. It was in the draft. It was taken out after that. And while the industry is running around showing people the draft and claiming that the Clean Power Standard requires funding nuclear, that just is not the case. And FERC, which most of our own groups don't seem to like, most recently reaffirmed that the competitive marketplace will not permit subsidizing nuclear plants that can't compete otherwise. Their most recent decision was Wednesday, where they just flat out barred Ohio from a deal that would subsidize 2 coal plants and Davis-Besse nuclear plant to the tune of, I think it was $8 billion over 8 years. And so no, if they can't make it in the marketplace, then that's too bad. You cannot subsidize them and do that. 5 years ago, they had a similar rule in New Jersey where Christie wanted to subsidize 2 gas plants built on political backers of his, and FERC bought that as well. FERC is consistent in trying to push a competitive marketplace under deregulation, and nukes can't compete under that. FERC doesn't care if they go away. Jim?
I wouldn't say that that's exactly where FERC is. Just,
Do you want to say a word about it, Tim? Come on up, just come quick. And then I'm going to move us to another question. Okay?
I mean, Roger's right about the ruling that they made this week and then what they did in the New Jersey case. But I actually was at a meeting between FERC and the NRC 2 years ago, where the FERC commissioners were, basically more rabid than the NRC was about how they, about what, trying to figure out what FERC could do to save nuclear power plants from closing. And I think there's probably some difference in opinion within FERC. I think the new chair of FERC, probably isn't in the same place, but the majority of the commission are all people that are, that actually want to help save nuclear power. And I think that I think that the trouble that they're having is figuring out a legal way to do it. And that's what they're going to go. That's what they're up against in Ohio. I think that that New York is trying to figure out a more clever solution to that.
Roger, you want to respond? Yeah.
We don't have a difference of opinion. In fact, I was told when I was working on this story that one of the people I should talk to was Tim Jensen, which hasn't happened yet. Gina McCarthy, the head of EPA, went around the country a year and a half, 2 years ago, having private meetings with major nuclear operators, promising them that the Clean Power Plan would include incentives for buying electricity from their power plants and giving them extra credits so that they would stop losing out not just the low price gas, but to increasing amounts of electricity generated by wind. And for years, you know, they have always said that we need more nuclear power because of increased demand. And what solar has done is knock the top off of that increased demand. And it's been already either flat or in some cases dropping. And so what happened after Gene McCarthy went around and made her promises, and after FERC's administrators went around saying, here, we're going to boost this renaissance and we're going to jumpstart it, is they had to face reality. And under Democratic administration, you're not going to break the debt in a free market if they can't compete tough shit. And so they all had a come to Jesus meeting with Mr. Obama, and that ain't what you're doing, which is how it got taken out of the draft of the EPA's Clean Power Plan. And the reason why FERC is, well, these are our standards. If you can't compete, you can't compete. It's not that some of them would not prefer to do something different. And if you have a Republican administration come the fall, chances are they will see a different light. But at the moment, that's not what they do.
Kevin, did you want to speak to this really briefly?
Just really briefly, just on the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and Dave Spessy, I mean, we're very thankful that FERC has put a hold on the Ohio situation, but it's only to buy themselves enough time to review the situation. So we're hopeful that they'll do the right thing, but it's not clear that they will.
Clear.
And on FERC again, the FERC had little problem with the whole Exxon takeover of PEPCO in the Mid-Atlantic. So now we don't just have the largest nuclear utility in the country, we have the largest utility, the largest electric utility in the country, Exxon Nuclear, which now controls PEPCO too, with FERC's blessing.
Okay, I got Shirley and then Ken and then Marilyn, and I'm going to try and wrap this up in 15 minutes, so please keep the questions and the answers fairly short.
Hi, so my question,
Yeah.
so my question is coming as somebody who doesn't know as much information as everyone else. The gentleman in the middle, you had said before that if we switch from nuclear to cleaner energy, the jobs are, the energy's already there, so we don't have to look for new energy. Does that translate as the jobs, like the people who are working in these nuclear power plants can then just go work somewhere else so that we don't have like more unemployed people? And then my second question is to the lady on the panel. What can we do to keep predatory practices from happening, like with solar energy? Because a lot of times when I hear predatory practices, I know that it's going to affect like lower income communities and by, you know, some definition, minority communities more. So I was just wondering if there's anything that is being done to kind of like head that up.
Okay, Roger and then
Repeat the question, please.
Okay, see, if I got it straight, you asked if my comments about there being available electricity meant that these jobs at any point were in danger. Is that essentially it?
Or if they could just, you know,
Yeah, you got the question. Go ahead.
No, they should have a lot. In any business, once you stop making money and you're replaced by something better or cheaper, they go out. Running a power plant is a business. It is not a jobs program. It is not a social contract. It's simply a business. It sells a widget. And if you don't buy the widget, then it goes away. As it happens, there is available electricity from other providers. The best example of that is the subways in National North and the airports and the street lights. All their electricity comes from the New York Power Authority, which built and ran 18.3 until Tim and Marilyn let them sell it to Entergy in 2001. And when that contract expired, NIPA said, we don't need you anymore, and they don't get any electricity from 18.3. Now they're fully aware of what that plant can do because they built it and ran it for almost 40 years. But they're buying their electricity elsewhere under long-term contracts that are reliable and costless. And so Indian Point 3, which 10 years ago, 85% of all their electricity was pre-sold under long-term contracts. Now the 560 megawatt contract they have with Kanye is the only contract they have. And that's for roughly 25% of their output. They're scrambling to sell the rest. And if it goes, then like any other place that's no longer needed, they close, and many of those jobs, not all of them, because the plant doesn't go away. There's a whole decommissioning process that takes decades, but many of those jobs go to.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can you repeat the question you understood?
actually, would you repeat it?
About predatory.
Shirley, can you just say it one more time?
So my second question is, you were saying that there's some predatory practices having to do with solar panels. And I was wondering if there are any actions in place to kind of like keep that from happening or to turn that around.
The predatory leases basically strip the property owner of all their rights and transfer all those rights to the solar developer. There's a lot of places to put solar up that are closed landfills, brownfield sites, large malls with flat roofs, big parking lots as they're doing in New Jersey. To pave over prime farmland can really jeopardize our food security in this region. So for a struggling farmer to be offered $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year additional income and have no say over where those solar panels are put. They can be put on rocky outcrops. There's a wise way to implement the change that's upon us. The other thing I want to say, and I'm going to take a step backwards about NYSERDA. NYSERDA, shrinking or not, did something that is really critical for New York City, and that is they have undergone an environmental impact statement of the effect of large-scale offshore wind on the marine ecosystem. They have paved the way for offshore wind to supply New York City. In order for that to occur, we're going to have to probably modify the 2080 rule, but it says that 80% of New York's peak demand needs to be generated within its own boundaries. But that is the real opportunity for New York City, is offshore wind. And by having this massive environmental impact statement already ready, once the investors get their act together, and the other green light for offshore wind was the fact that the proposed liquid natural gas facility that would be exporting liquid gas around the world was canceled by the government. So all the ingredients are there. My prediction, and it's no longer pie in the sky, is that in the next 5 to 10 years, we will replace the energy we don't need from Indian Point many times over with solar, with these large solar systems that will be properly sited, but we have to be vigilant to be sure that they are. And that between, in the next decade, offshore wind will come to New York City. And the investors are starting to see that. And that's what is happening. Entergy's whole financial profile is getting shakier and shakier every day. Our responsibility is to do what Catherine has started, and I hope we'll have a chance to talk about that over this weekend, and that is to ensure a just transition for the few workers that will be downsized. 75% of the workforce is going to be maintained. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you. Ken, last question is going to be from Ken Biel.
I'd like you to go into more detail about the generation of electric power slide that you put up. You mentioned transmission waste up to 60% of the energy generated. And I wonder if you could go into detail about where that 60%, I would imagine it adds up in various points. and how much loss there is in generating power in the first place.
I'm not sure, I mean, I heard the question, Tim, but I'm not sure that I understand it. I know the slide. It's just a fact that over long distances, large amounts of power are wasted.
Where do you lose all that power? I mean, how does it get lost?
In the resistance of the wire.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, what about, I mean, I've heard like a substation, when they go from transmission to distribution, you lose so many percentage. When you use like 1% per 100 miles, where are all the different losses, and how much loss do you have in making the power in the first place?
Again, it doesn't really matter what is lost. The notion of tracking electrons is something industry uses to have you focus in a place that you don't need to. It's easiest to think of electricity. That's a nice song. Think of electricity the same way you do a bank and money from a bank. When it comes to payday, you go and go to the ATM machine and you can withdraw the equivalent of your drawing rights, which is what your paycheck is. There's nobody standing here saying that you have to prove that the dollars you took out were the exact dollars your boss put in. And when you look at the grid, it is simply a massive pool. And you put electricity in various places. There are 300 generators in the state, and the grid operators simply make sure it stays in balance. And companies, utilities, take out from various places whatever they have paid for and contracted for, what their drawing rights are. And as long as the grid simply makes sure that the pool, the electric pool, is full. It's not a question of if you're buying electricity from a wind farm on Lake Erie, are those the electrons that are coming down to New York City? Probably not, but it doesn't matter because the pressure from those keep the system filled and you pull out the same amount down here. It's not a problem.
So electric car is a good thing. And
With that, I'm gonna call it. There's lots of other time to talk this weekend. I'm gonna give Kevin the last word to close our time this evening. Anything you want to say to finish this up?
Well, just to respond to that question, the inefficiencies of large thermoelectric power plants, whether it's nuclear or fossil fuel, 2/3 of the heat generated from splitting atoms or burning fossil fuel is waste heat. It has to be dealt with as a waste. So at Indian Point, there's massive thermal discharges into the Hudson River. That's the waste heat. Only 1/3 of the heat generated actually gets converted into usable electricity. So massive inefficiencies in this ancient, outdated technology that needs to be replaced with more efficient technologies.
Will you join me in thanking our panelists? And I would invite you to stand and turn to someone near you and share one new idea or thought that came to you as this conversation went on for the last hour. You've got about 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Share what?
New ideas?
You know what I did learn the fact. That is that today's loss.